Welcome to the Scratch Golfer's Mindset Podcast. My name is Paul Salter, and I'm a triple-digit golfer on a quest to become a scratch golfer. I'm also a high-performance mindset coach and credentialed hypnotherapist with 15 years of experience helping high performers from all walks of life get unstuck and unlock their full potential. Join me each week as I not only detail my journey, but make mastering the mental game of golf simple, tangible, and relatable so that you can overcome the mental hazards keeping you stuck in the proverbial bunker of poor performance. Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Scratch Golfer's Mindset. I'm your host, your current triple-digit golfer, and your mental game expert on all things golf, Paul Salter. And I am thrilled that you have decided to join me on this journey. And I'll tell you what, I cannot wait until the day I can finally update that brief little intro spiel to say, I have finally broken 100 as a golfer. I am a consistent 80s golfer, and ultimately be able to confidently and excitedly share with you that I am a scratch golfer. Well, thank you so much for being here, for joining me on the first official full-length episode of the Scratch Golfer's Mindset podcast. And if you have been curious about when, how, and why your mind may be holding you back from playing consistently better golf, then this episode is for you. My goal in this episode is to do two things. First and foremost, bring you up to speed, share a little bit more about me, my golf journey, my professional background, and ultimately use that as a segue into discussing the mental and emotional hazards of your mind that, to be frank, are keeping you stuck in that proverbial bunker of poor performance. With that said, let's dive in. So my background is short, simple, probably incredibly relatable to many of you listening. I was a multi-sport athlete growing up. Football, baseball, soccer, lacrosse, tennis, and of course, golf. The only challenge that I faced as a multi-sport athlete was that at 16 years old, I was a whopping 5'2" or 3" and about 110 pounds soaking wet. As you can imagine, I struggled mightily to keep up with my peers who were bigger, stronger, and faster. And fortunately, for some reason, and I'm going to give my mother all of the credit in the world for this, I was always gravitating towards making a healthier, more nutritious food choice. And I began to connect the dots at a really young age that if I paid attention to the food I put into my body, specifically, before, during, and after two-a-day football practices, for example, I was able to keep up with or either outperform my peers who were bigger, stronger, and faster. And this curiosity and connection, paired with a fascination and passion for being in the weight room, really began to build the foundation and the launch pad of the first chapter of my career. I spent the first 14 years of my adult professional career as a sports dietitian. I worked closely with elite high school, college, professional, and Olympic athletes, helping them to maximize their performance, their recovery, and their body composition. And it was here that I got my first taste of what it was like to be surrounded by the best of the best, to be surrounded, engulfed in conversation with those who were truly at the top of their game, high performers who were firing on all cylinders. And this gave me an in-depth opportunity to really begin to understand how those who are at their best talk, think, behave, show up, carry themselves, interact with others. I was able to have opportunities in which I would be preparing supplement routines for a team of athletes or a cohort of athletes preparing for the NFL Combine, and I could engage in conversation, albeit at times casual and passive. But fortunately, our subconscious is always picking up information as it scans our environment. And I was beginning to really understand on an experiential level just how these high performers thought, planned, and executed. And I'll take you one moment back in time previously to share, as it now begins to come full circle on my background, that I always have had a fascination behind why are the best of the best so much further ahead? Why is Tiger Woods, Roger Federer so much better than the rest of their competition? Men like Kobe, Michael, why were they leaps and bounds better than the remainder of their competition, most of which, you could argue, worked at least, let's call it 90% as hard. But we begin to see as we unpack the minds, the work ethics, and how these individuals are wired, that they continue to push and grind out every single micro percent to be the best they absolutely could, to unlock and achieve their full potential. And they did so relentlessly, consistently, regardless of how they felt. And those were the men that I grew up watching and idolizing, studying. I was a voracious reader, a voracious note taker from a young age, wanting to understand and study all things peak performance, sports psychology. And this served as my segue as I launched into my nutrition coaching career. But what really separated me from most coaches at this time was I talked very little about nutrition education. And I focused everything related to sustainable behavior change through the lens of both mindset and emotional awareness and regulation. And it was this focus that really fueled my own foray into a pursuit of playing poker professionally. No limit cash, live poker professionally. It was a hobby and passion of mine for a very long time. Fun fact, my brother, who is roughly 3 years younger than me, actually taught me how to play the game when I was around the age of 10, making him 7. Quite ironic considering he doesn't play anymore, and I absolutely loved the game to the point I went all in from a recreational player who studied hard to really pursuing this as a professional career. And the reason this segue in my journey is so timely and relevant to you as my listener today is because this is where I was first introduced to hypnosis, to formal mindset and performance coaching. You see, as I began taking my poker even more seriously, began playing for more money, moving up in stakes, I started to spot a massive problem. Despite knowing what to do, despite studying my ass off, working with a poker coach to fine-tune my fundamentals, I was stuck in a pattern of passivity, stuck in a pattern of fear, so much that in the moment with thousands of dollars on the line, despite knowing what to do, I would freeze up and intentionally make the wrong decision out of fear. And regardless of how little or how much you know about poker, what I can tell you, or what I think is abundantly clear, is that is a quick fire way to lose a lot of money fast. So, wanting to accelerate my results, I did the best thing I possibly could. I asked for help. I hired a mindset and performance coach. You fast forward going on 5+ years later, I still work with my coach. She's incredible. Not only did she help me have transformative success on the poker table, but she had an exponentially great impact in both my personal and professional life. And fortunately or unfortunately, I like to go with the side of fortunately, COVID put a fast end to my professional poker pursuits as all the live casinos closed for an extended period of time. But it was this taste of the impact of mindset and performance coaching that ultimately helped connect with my original passion and fascination of high performer psychology and behavior change, how the minds of those who are in the top 1% are so complex and different This led me to pivot, to change course, to begin and inevitably walk away from nutrition coaching and education, which was all I technically knew, to go all in on high-performance mindset coaching. I sought out and earned my credential as a hypnotherapist, and don't you worry. We're going to have an entire episode and more frequent mentions on all things hypnosis down the line. But I also spent years and have been ever since up until this current moment training under, mentoring under, learning from the best of the best in the mindset and performance coaching field. Grace Smith, and very popular in the poker realm, Mr. Elliott Rowe. I have been a sponge, learning as much as I can, meeting with them, studying with them very regularly to do everything I can to understand how to help someone like you who knows what to do, but cannot do it because there is a mental or emotional hazard of your mind keeping you stuck. I have been able to harness my gift, my passion at helping you uncover the collection of beliefs, behaviors, and fears, keeping you stuck in a pattern of mediocrity, and been able to ultimately redirect my career to help high performers, serious golfers like yourselves, unlearn those patterns, upgrade those patterns so that you can get unstuck from the proverbial bunker of high performance and unlock your full potential. There's my professional spiel. But let's talk all things golf. You see, my golfing journey started at a young age. Fortunately, my dad was somewhat of a regular golfer, is probably the best way to describe it. Recreational for fun. I'm sure plenty of beer was present, but he put us in golf lessons probably around the age of 6 or 7. There were clinics at our local course, a handful of group lessons. I don't recall any one-on-one lessons, but I started to play the game of golf at a fairly young age. And, as consistent as a 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old possibly can. However, in high school, my golf course did something incredibly unique. They had a summer where if you were in high school, you could golf for free. I don't know if maybe my parents paid for like a summer unlimited pass. I'm really not sure. But you bet your ass my friends and I took full advantage of playing almost every day of the week. We would bet $5, $10 per hole or per round. We would go as much as we could, sometimes playing up to 27 holes in a day. And I became a pretty decent golfer out of pure frequency and consistency. There were no lessons or clinics at that time, but there were several occasions where I was breaking 50. I believe, if memory serves me right, the best I ever scored on a round of 9 was 43 or 45. But I was able to break 100 quite consistently, albeit the high schooler in me pulled off an occasional mulligan or 3 per round, but I was a pretty solid golfer. Until adult life took over. And in the span of 11 or 12 years, I've lived in 8 different states, moved a whopping 18 times, and the golf clubs got left behind. There was one trip home that I estimate was 5 or 6 years ago at this point, in which I went to spend time with my younger sister's boyfriend, who was an incredibly avid golfer. He shot, I believe, a 39 or 38 that day on the 9 holes we played, and I went and played a round of 9 with him, and I believe I shot around a 53, a 55, one of those numbers. So not a bad day, but I will tell you, I had a par that day on a par 3, fucking ecstatic with that, because I hadn't touched clubs in over 10 years at that point, and all I did was pull up at the range 30 minutes before, hit some balls, and wing it without a care in the world. And now we fast forward to today. I've played a total of 9 holes in 12 to 15 years. And as my professional coaching career, as a high-performance mindset coach, working with high performers to help them get unstuck and unlock their full potential has evolved, I've started working with golfers through various business connections and word of mouth referrals, through working with business owners, entrepreneurs, and poker players who all have a strong fascination with the game of golf, who all have in them instilled at their core a desire to win, an ambitious commitment to be the best they can in all that they do. I was fortunate enough to be introduced to a handful of golfers and began applying my own coaching systems to help resolve the root cause of some of their own detrimental mind and emotional patterns that were keeping them stuck from playing better golf and shooting lower scores. And I was immediately, instantaneously reminded how much I love the game of golf. Now, don't get me wrong. Just because I didn't touch clubs for such an extended period of time, I watched all of the majors. I watched a handful of additional tournaments throughout the year, was still in the know, a little bit deeper than surface level of the game of golf. But having some of those initial coaching consults with my clients, I was completely immersed, fascinated, infatuated with the game of golf once again, just like I was in high school. And I knew I had to scratch that itch. So of course, I went to Facebook Marketplace, got me a steal of a deal, if I had to say so, $200 full set with every single degree of wedge ever known, 2-ball putter, a driver, 3-wood and 5-foot of classic Ben Hogan golf clubs, even a 1-iron in the set. Like, how old school is that? For $200 on Facebook Marketplace. Clubs are in great shape. The bag, not so much. Gonna have to get a new bag. And I got the clubs and I hit the driving range. And let me tell you, a whopping 1 out of 10, every 10 shots had clean contact. It was horrendous, embarrassing, humbling to say the least. But I'll tell you what, every single shot that was clean contact was mesmerizing, intoxicating. This desire to want to master a game of emotion, master a game of mental fortitude, had some of the same parallels that drew me to the game of poker. Because I fully believe that both golf, poker, and entrepreneurship as well are beautiful mirrors and reflections of the game of life. And if you're able to master your emotions and your mindset in one of these avenues, there is direct transferability to every other aspect of life. And I know when I go all in and commit to pursuing a goal, that not only do I have tremendous success in said goal, whether it be business, poker, or golf, but I myself unlock the next best version of myself. I shine brighter and everybody else around me is lifted up. And that's what I aspire to do through the game of golf, through this commitment to become a scratch golfer. I know damn well that I will have to raise my game on a personal level, as a coach, as a boyfriend, as a friend, as a son, as a brother. I will be forced to step up my game. And I have been missing for so long in my life a goal that is oriented in play and fun and curiosity. I've had dozens and dozens of business and entrepreneurship-based goals for so long, and as much as I enjoy what I do, I've lost sight of the element of play, curiosity, and adventure. And golf has stoked that flame that went dormant for so long. And I'm here to tell you, truly declaring in this podcast, in all of the pivots I'm making to help golfers overcome the mental and emotional hazards of their minds to shoot lower scores, I am committed as a current triple-digit golfer to becoming a scratch golfer. In every episode moving forward, you're going to get a real in-depth look, raw, unfiltered, and emotional about every step of my journey to becoming a scratch golfer. I don't know how long it will take. Right now, to be frank, I have little expectation or care about the timeline. I'm focused on the process. I am not results oriented. I am process present and focused at this time. I have a long journey ahead of me, and I look forward to the growth through each expected and unexpected challenge that awaits me. So every episode, you'll get an in-depth look about where I am, what I'm focused on, what happened last week, what's coming up in the week ahead on this journey to becoming a scratch golfer. And you'll also get sandwiched in between the meat and potatoes, a strong dose of education around concept, theory, high performance strategies, subconscious reprogramming, and shifts to help you improve your own mental game of golf so that you can shoot lower scores more consistently. And in next episode, I'm going to detail exactly what happened in, I think the best word to describe it is disastrous first official 9 holes since picking up the clubs yet again, but I want to give you a brief update on where I am and dig into providing some value before we wrap up this episode. So here I am. I have that one lone driving range session under my belt in which I bought a large bucket of balls. My gloves from Amazon had not yet come, or I should say glove, that is. So, of course, naturally, I developed a massive blister on my left index finger. And I took my time, and in about 70 minutes, maybe I had finished hitting about 2/3 of that large bucket of range balls. My blister was incredibly painful. I had shanked about 90% of my shots, but I was excited, curious, and hopeful, to the point where I reached out and I asked for help. I hired a coach, and I showed up at that lesson 3 days later, giving him an incredibly brief spiel about my background and demanding, professionally and politely, of course, that he teach me as if I have never held a golf club before. I wanted to strip down everything I learned. I wanted to empty my cup and begin with the grip, the stance, and get all of the fundamental techniques I needed to begin building the foundation that will become essential to helping me become a scratch golfer. So that's what we did. We spent an hour during my first lesson focusing on grip, aim, stance, swing, collecting real-time feedback. And I'll tell you what, by the end of that 1 hour lesson, I was making clean contact. Man, I would estimate 7, if not 8 out of 10 shots. It was incredible. I wish I had that lesson, those techniques and pointers, that type of coaching 25 years ago. But here we are. And since then, I have invested in plastic golf balls so I can hit routinely. I live about 20 minutes away from the nearest range or golf course, but a quick 5 to 10 minute walk away from a park or patch of grass I can begin hitting. I've begun to putt on the rug in my living room, and I have a commitment of 1 lesson and at least 1 round of 9, if not 18 holes every single week. In the next episode, like I mentioned, I'll dig deep into what came up to me during my first round of 9, playing 9 holes with one of my best friends who's an inconsistent golfer himself. And I'm going to leave it at that. And I'm going to begin to shift our conversation to really introducing you to the concept of what a destructive mindset program is and how it is ultimately the source of the mental and emotional hazards that are in your mind, keeping you stuck from shooting lower scores consistently. I think the best way to begin breaking down the concept of a destructive mindset program is with the following question. Do you struggle with self-doubt? Defeating negative self-talk, fear of failure or success, performance anxiety, pressure, inconsistent focus and concentration, uncontrolled anger and emotional management, or lack of confidence on the course? These, my friend, are some of the most common mental hazards that are keeping you stuck in that proverbial bunker of poor performance that I continue to reference as we dig deeper into this episode. Some of the most common mental and emotional hazards of your mind include overthinking your shot, mismanagement of emotions after poor shots and mistakes, an inability to maintain consistent focus and concentration during a round, experiencing frustration with plateaus, particularly when you're working on an element of your swing technique on the range and it's not yet translating to playing that round of 18. Maybe you're putting high expectations and pressure on yourself to perform. Maybe you're struggling with imposter syndrome, performance anxiety, fear of failure, maintaining your confidence, consistently comparing yourself with peers, or flat out just struggling to balance your passion and ambition to play better golf with your personal, professional, and family golf. You see, all of these are ultimately patterns and programs that continue to play out due to a set of circumstances from childhood, early adolescence, or throughout some experience that was significant, or dare I even say traumatic, in your early portion of life. So what is a destructive mindset program? Essentially, a destructive mindset program is a subconscious pattern of self-talk, thought, belief, behavior, and result that manifests unconsciously and translates into one of those experiences or outcomes or results that I just mentioned. And really what happens is we find ourselves triggered on the golf course. That trigger initiates a pre-programmed emotional response, which leads to specific self-talk. This self-talk, when we begin to engage in self-talk and give our attention to our self-talk, that is a thought. The more time, energy, and attention we give to particular thoughts, the more likely it is they become elevated into beliefs. These beliefs translate into action or inaction. This collection of action or inaction, when done repeatedly, becomes a habit. These habits lead to your results, which shape your identity. That is the downstream ripple effect of a destructive mindset program. And one of the easiest examples, one of the most relatable examples I can share to help illustrate that is when you hit a poor shot. Maybe you shank your tee shot. You pull your 5-iron. And what happens? That mistake or poor shot is your trigger. That trigger immediately initiates the emotional response of anger. And depending on how you were role modeled anger at a young age, that anger is more than likely to influence negative self-talk that sounds more or less like, fuck, you idiot, or damn it, I always do that. You see, this self-talk becomes incredibly negative, critical, and harsh. And as you give more attention and repeat this self-talk, these thoughts become beliefs. That fuck, damn it, becomes I always shank my driver. I'm terrible off the tee. I can never hit my 5-iron. These beliefs continue to make themselves true because these beliefs originate from your subconscious mind. And your subconscious mind has a goal of making as many of your thoughts real as it possibly can. So what happens when you step up to your next shot harboring this anger, this negative self-talk, and this limiting belief? Well, you are tense and you are distracted while preparing for your next shot. So you might rush your pre-shot routine. And one of the easiest ways to guarantee another poor shot is to show up tense and distracted. If you are stuck in the conscious thought pattern of negative self-talk, if your muscles are overly tense, you're never going to be able to let go and engage in that fluid, easy swing that you already know how to do. And the result, of course, is you hook your next shot, you slice your next shot, you grow more frustrated, and you experience this accumulation of unregulated emotion throughout your next shot, your next hole, and the duration of your round. This, my friend, is an example of an all too common destructive mindset program. And you see, there are many sources of triggers that can lead, into multiple pre-programmed emotional responses. And let me show you another example that you might not even have thought about as your mental wheels are turning right now. Let's say you parred the last 2 holes. That's a trigger too. Maybe you're used to shooting in the low 80s, but you look at your scorecard and you begin to notice, holy crap, I have a really good chance of breaking 80 today. Well, what happens is this consistency, this momentum, this confidence, these past good holes might trigger overconfidence. You might start getting lazy with your routine. So this overconfidence breeds overconfident self-talk. You begin to believe that you've got this. Golf is easy. You have more control than you actually do. You start thinking too much. You slack on the essential pre and post-shot routine. You stop paying attention to your breathing. You stop assessing and analyzing greens, lines, and reads like you normally do. And all of the sudden, the pressure is a little more. The weight of expectation becomes heavier, which creates tension in your muscles, distraction in your mind, and it takes you away from the fluid, easy swing that helped you par back-to-back holes in the first place. And lo and behold, you've got a triple bogey on your scorecard and another double to quickly follow. It is these destructive mindset programs that happen unconsciously in the background that hold you back from playing better golf. And that is truly the source of why you may struggle with self-doubt, fear, performance pressure and anxiety, negative self-talk, inconsistent focus, anger, and lack of confidence. There is a trigger and a pre-programmed response already queued up in your subconscious mind. And yes, there are thousands of different surface level strategies, breathing techniques, reframing, changing your self-talk, affirmations that can serve as band-aids and short-term solutions on of the problem. But if you truly want to unlearn or upgrade these pre-programmed responses, you need to get to the core and resolve the program at its root. Uncover the origins so that you can let go of the fear, belief, and behavior components of that program, unlearn them or upgrade them so that they begin to work for you so that you can remain emotionally neutral, even keel. You can remain focused, full of concentration, full of energy to give your attention to where it matters most, rich and confident, positive in your self-talk, and focused on one shot at a time, lining up every shot with that next shot mentality. And that is where I come into play as a coach, because we both know shooting lower scores more often absolutely demands consistent focus, emotional control, persistent patience, and confidence. And where I want to leave you for today's episode and really invite you into exploration, into some compassionate curiosity, is throughout your next round, I want you to begin to note, what are some of the triggers and emotions you experience on the course? And do so non-judgmentally. How do you feel after you hit a negative shot? Whether you slice your drive or shank your iron. How do you feel after a 3-putt? How do you feel when the group behind you pulls up and is riding your ass from hole to hole? How do you feel when someone or everyone in your foursome is outperforming you? Begin to take note on what feelings come up. See if you can label an emotion of fear, or anger, or anxiety? Can you pinpoint where in your body you feel it? Is it tightness in your chest? Butterflies in your stomach, tension and heaviness in your shoulders and neck, a searing pain in your forehead? That awareness alone is going to be an excellent catalyst to helping you uncover your own unique set of destructive mindset programs that are holding you back from shooting lower scores more consistently. And we'll continue to build off of that as I continue to empower and equip you with the tools to overcome the mental and emotional hazards of your mind as we continue this journey together. And with that said, in next week's episode, I'm going to do a full breakdown of my first official 9 holes since making this commitment to becoming a scratch golfer. You're going to hear about the laundry list of mental and emotional hazards of my mind that came up and that I will have to work diligently on conquering. And you'll get brought up to speed on how my lessons are going. I'm actually about to head out to my second lesson as I wrap up this episode. And you'll get an in-depth look into my practice and play routine and what I'm doing to not only fine-tune my mental game, but of course, rapidly bring up to speed my fundamentals and technique every step of the way. And the one last announcement I want to share is we've got a free and growing Facebook community for serious and aspiring golfers who are seeking to become a scratch golfer. It's called the Aspiring Scratch Golfer Society. It's absolutely free. It's a community on Facebook. If you are serious about taking your golf game to the next level, you're looking to surround yourself with like-minded golfers who you can benefit from learning more about the mental game, swing, technique, routines, I highly invite you to come join us. I'll drop the link in the invitation in the show notes. Again, absolutely free community on Facebook. It's called the Aspiring Scratch Golfers Society. Well, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Scratch Golfers Mindset Podcast. If you found value in today's episode, do me a favor, share it with a fellow golfer. And if you feel called to support the show, take 30 seconds to leave a genuine rating and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you are listening to the show. This goes further than you know, and I have a hunch it will ensure that your next putt for par lips in rather than lips out. Thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll catch you in the next episode.